Andrew, another big day on the energy front. We're going to be hearing from the energy market operator chief in the next hour, but it's not so much about the crisis at this moment, it's more about the next decade or few decades, in fact, this analysis out today.
Well, that's right. The Australian energy market operator has today spelt out what it believes is required to keep the lights on, and it is some ask. A little over a week ago, the Energy Security Board said you would require the equivalent of a new Snowy Hydro 2.0 every year until 2030, and indeed every year until 2050. And this AEMO plan for the grid released today essentially says the same. Have a look at this. This is the so-called step change scenario that AEMO is proposing. It proposes storage capacity from renewables to increase by a factor of 30 from 2 gigawatts or 2 billion watts of energy now to 15 gigawatts in 2030 and 61 by 2050. Then there is grid-scale wind and solar to increase ninefold. It's 16 gigawatts now. They're saying needs to be 44 in 2030 and 141 gigawatts in 2050 solar and wind power. It says distributed solar power will have to increase fivefold. It's now at 15 megawatts, 35 by 2030 and 69 by 2050. Now don't forget, during this time, electricity usage from the grid will nearly double. Coal-fired generation, AEMO says, will withdraw, with 60% of it going by 2030 and 100% by 2043. Gas-fired peaking plants, according to this plan, will increase, but not at the same rate. There's 7 gigawatts now. There will be 10 gigawatts by 2050, Kieran.
And the analysis, this report out by AEMO, is very much in line with what the Albanese government has promised.
Interesting that it is. This is what the Australian energy market operator says, which aligns with that Labor government goal of 82% of our electricity being powered by renewables by 2030. It says the national electricity market is supporting a once-in-a-century transformation in the way electricity is generated and consumed in eastern and southeastern Australia. It will replace legacy assets with low-cost renewables, add energy storage and other new forms of firming capacity and reconfigure the grid so there's two-way energy flow. Consumers will be able to draw on low-emission electricity, they promise, for their transport, industry, office and homes, replacing oil, gas and other fuels. The plan goes on that its draft, published last December, considered 4 scenarios for the pace of energy transformation on the path to reach net zero by 2050. Stakeholders identified the most likely to be the relatively fast, as they put it, step change scenario, which we just spoke about, with renewables generating 83% of energy by 2030-31. Since then, AEMO says, momentum towards decarbonisation has accelerated, confirming the step change scenario as a solid foundation for planning investment. Basically, the government then is going with the plan the bureaucrats flagged last December. That would require them then, according to the plan, to efficiently install more than 10,000 kilometres of new transmission to connect geographically and technologically diverse low-cost generation on a pathway that is low cost and low regret for consumers. It's a big job. And Kieran asked Treasurer Jim Chalmers about this earlier, how achievable it is. Jim Chalmers says it is achievable. The government gives itself every chance of doing this.
I believe so, Kieran, and I believe that one of the costs and some of the consequences of this decade now, this wasted decade of missed opportunities in clean energy and this energy policy chaos that we've had for so long means we start further back than we would like to be starting. But we have the right policy now. We've got a government with the right intentions. Industry right around Australia, almost every single consultation I do in one way is about how do we make our energy mix more efficient and cleaner and cheaper? And so I think now that we've got a new government in Canberra, everybody's rowing in the same direction. And so that means we do give ourselves every chance of hitting these targets. They're absolutely crucial.